began my career studying the human brain, and I directed a small neuroscience laboratory at San Francisco State University in California, where we were studying whether the brain could create psychosomatic health, because we knew that we could create psychosomatic disease, that the brain could kill you. We call it stress in the West, but can you create psychosomatic health? Can you create extraordinary states of health in the same way that an athlete can create extraordinary performance? So we spent a couple of years dedicated to studying how the brain can heal you or it can kill you, and discovered that basically the mind is mad. And the mind, if it's let out of control, is going to be creating a tremendous amount of stress and what's going to happen. And I'm worried about my life and my career and my kids and my spouse. So the mind needs to be trained. But I discovered that we didn't know how to do that in the West. That in the West, we use the mind to study physics and to study the outside world. But in the East, in India and in Tibet, they use the mind to study the mind. And the same applied to the shamans in the Americas, the medicine men and women. They turned the mind within to understand how the mind works to create health. But then I discovered that the mind not only creates health, it creates your entire reality. It creates your entire world. And at that point, I shut down my laboratory at San Francisco State University and went down to the Amazon and spent 25 years working with the shamans in the Amazon to learn how to create health and how to create beauty and joy in the world. I went to villages in the backwaters of the Amazon because I was originally funded by big Swiss pharma. These are the big pharmaceutical companies. I was a medical anthropologist, and the Amazon is nature's pharmacy. And they wanted to discover the next breakthrough cure for cancer or for Alzheimer's or for heart disease. And they said to me, Alberto, you could become rich and famous if you help us discover the cure for cancer. And here, we'll finance your studies. So they funded me for a period of years to go into villages that no white man had ever gone to before. And the kids would come running to me, and they would rub my hands to see if the white dirt would rub off. But these were people that had had very little contact with the West. And what I discovered is that they had no cancer, no heart disease, no Alzheimer's, no dementia. That these were the illnesses of the West. They were the illnesses of civilization. And that when the Amazonian peoples left their villages and moved to the cities and they began to eat like us and to work like us, they began to get sick like us and to die like us and get the diseases of civilization. Cancers began to develop, dementias started happening, heart disease became rampant in one generation, in a period of 10 years. So this is what got me started thinking about the Western lifestyle and how it really will kill you, because it will get your brain into such a state of stress that all that it can create is psychosomatic disease. See, the secret to longevity is to live long and die quickly. But what we're doing in the West is we're living short and dying slowly with, bedridden and in wheelchairs and hooked up to IVs, because we're dying from these chronic conditions that are killing us very, very slowly. There's a revolution in thinking that's happening today. We're going back to natural foods. We want to eat locally, eat organic, eat seasonally. Give up the sugar. The sugar is the one thing that will shut down your longevity genes. Because we've discovered in the last decade that there's a set of genes that regulate how long and how healthy you will live. And these genes are called the sirtuins, the SIRT genes. The sirtuin genes will determine your lifespan. And these are modifiable genes. So you can modify their expression, whether you will express heart disease or cancer or Alzheimer's, or you will express a long and healthy life where you can take your vitality and your sexuality and your humor and your enthusiasm with you until your later years, until your 90s, your 100s, your 110s. Imagine being able to run a marathon at 95 or have an active love life in your 90s. That's possible. And it's possible for humans particularly, because we are one of 3 species in the planet that do not have death programmed into our DNA. Let me explain this a little bit more carefully. There are 400 million species in the planet. And out of these 400 million different species of birds and mammals and insects, out of these millions of species, there are only 3 that don't have death programmed into their DNA. And they're humans, orcas, whales, and dolphins. In every other species, the minute that the female is no longer able to reproduce and make babies, nature eliminates her. There are no grandmothers in the wild. If you go to Africa, you find that in the game parks, there's no grandmothers. But the grandmother orca whales will teach the young how to hunt, how to communicate. The grandmother humans used to teach us about the old ways, about the stories of our people. So there are only 3 species in which the female lives to be a grandmother, to have this experience that we call menopause. Whereas in nature, nature's all about reproduction to perpetuate the longevity of the species. But among humans, longevity belongs to the individual. You and I have the ability to modify the expression of our genes to create long life, to have our health span equal our lifespan, and to become grandmothers and grandfathers, because death is not programmed into our DNA. We could be immortal if we discover how to support the physical body. We can live to be 1,000 years old. If we can keep the repair and regeneration systems in the body functioning optimally through our diet, through the energy medicine that the shamans in the Amazon and in Tibet and in the high mountains around the world discovered, if you could clear the imprints of disease from your energy field that surrounds the physical body, you could have a body that doesn't get sick, that doesn't manifest disease, and that heals very rapidly. We don't have a death program. And the 3 species that don't have a death program, humans, dolphins, and whales, have the biggest brain to body weight ratio. They have the biggest, most complex brains. So this is a function of how nature doesn't select for muscle and for teeth and for speed and for brawn. It's not the survival of the strongest and the fittest. It's the survival of the wisest, of the most intelligent. So nature selects for intelligence. And she's given these 3 species the opportunity to have immortal bodies, if we can learn how to care for the body. And this is where the shamanic energy medicine, which is what I do today, I've left the brain laboratory, and today I train modern shamans in working with the energy field, with the human energy field, and how we can reprogram it for extraordinary health and extraordinary life. Today I direct the 4 Winds Society, which I founded, and it's dedicated to training modern shamans. And the 4 Winds it's a legend in the Amazon about the wizard of the 4 winds, which is a sage that was able to summon the forces and the powers of the winds. And I love that name. And today, the 4 winds represents the 4 directions of the world. And people around the world are waking up to the reality that the Western economic model that dictates what we eat and dictates the kind of medicine we have, that it's doomed to failure. It's collapsing. We're living in the age that I call the era of Pharmageddon, where we're getting medicated since we're born until we die. We're in the grip of the pharmaceutical companies and the food companies that have industrial food production. That's not what humans thrive on. So we have to break free of this system that is keeping us trapped in a model of masters and slaves. The Western economic and medical and healthcare system is designed to maintain a society of masters and slaves, in which the slaves carry the rocks to build the pyramids for the masters that have long and healthy lives, whereas the rest of humanity has short and brutish lives. And today we have the technology, we have the science, and we have the ancient medicine to create health. And this is the fundamental practice that we teach at the Four Winds, that if you create the conditions for health, then disease goes away. You don't need to treat disease. Create the conditions for health, disease goes away. Prevention, it never happens. But in the West, in America at least, what we have is we don't have a healthcare system, we have a disease care system, where we train doctors to treat the 14,000 different illnesses that we have identified in Western medicine. Whereas the shamans in the Andes say there's only one illness. In fact, they say that the illnesses do not exist, that sick people exist, but illnesses do not exist. And the only disease that they recognize is disconnection from nature. When you become disconnected from nature and from your own nature, from your own feelings, from your heart, from your own gut flora, you have 90 trillion good bacteria living inside your gut. And we basically destroy through sugars and through antibiotics. We become disconnected from our own nature. We get sick. We get disconnected from Mother Nature, and we get disconnected from Mother Nature the minute we learned about our story of creation, that God created the world for the pleasure of man, of humans, for us to consider everything in the world as food belonging to us, or to look at forests as natural resources, as lumber, instead of becoming the stewards and the caretakers of the garden, which is what the native peoples do. We become the predators and the exploiters of the garden, and we have been destroying the garden, the earth. And of course, as the earth is sick, humans are also sick. So what I do today is to train modern shamans, men and women that are dedicated to being the stewards of the earth, of life, of all life, beginning with their own body, beginning with their gut flora, beginning with their brain, repairing their brain that has been damaged for everyone eating the Western diet or living the Western lifestyle. And I'll give you an example. I remember as a child when the thermometer broke that I would play with the mercury and just watch it wiggle in my hand. And mercury is a neurotoxin. And then I went to my dentist when I grew up, and she put mercury in my teeth. So all of us have been affected by these toxic heavy metals in particular that are in our food, in our air, in our water supply. So we have become waste dumps. Our bodies are basically an accumulation of the waste of humanity that is making our brains sick and making our bodies ill. You cannot just go live in a mountaintop or live. For some of us, it is feasible, but not for the vast majority of humans. What we have to do is we have to optimize our detox systems in the body. Except that the body was not meant to detox the heavy metals that we're exposed to right now. For example, the body can eliminate 20 milligrams of aluminum a day. 20 milligrams. But if you take an antacid tablet that are sold in pharmacies around the world, an antacid tablet has 120 milligrams of aluminum in it. Your tummy feels better for a little while, but then the rest of that aluminum goes to your brain because the body will store toxins in fat. And the brain is 70% fat. And then you end up with brain fog, and you can't think clearly. And with a brain that is full of mercury, that's full of lead, that's full of aluminum, that's full of arsenic. And then we begin to express psychosomatic disease. The brain stress levels go up. Your cortisol and adrenaline production increase tremendously. You're caught in fight or flight. You live in a world of scarcity and fear, and you can't break out of it because your brain is not detoxifying. But what we can do is we can optimize the detox systems in the body and the brain so that we can eliminate these toxins from our body. And we do this primarily through a plant-based diet. This is the key. We co-evolve with the plants, not with the animals. I eat animal foods. I eat fish once a week. I eat meat maybe once or twice a month. But if you have your diet be primarily green and plant-based and cut out the sugars, because the sugars will clog your detox system, so shut them down. You need to, first of all, eliminate the sugars, then introduce a plant-based diet. You're going to be switching on the longevity genes. You're going to be turning on more than 500 genes that create health and silencing more than 200 genes that create cancer and heart disease and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and breast cancer. You're going to be silencing all those genes and preventing disease instead of having to treat disease. And particularly when it comes to the dementias and the Alzheimer's and the Parkinson's that we cannot cure, but we know how to prevent them. We can prevent these, but they're not curable. So the other key to longevity and to detoxification are the supplements. The supplements are basically what the word says. They're the vitamins and nutrients that you're not getting in your food. So it used to be that we would go to the garden and harvest our lunch directly. But today, we're getting beautiful organic food in health food stores that is devoid of nutrients, that is coming from soils that are depleted, that don't have the minerals that your body needs to renew itself, to renew your bones, to maintain your detox systems working optimally. So I asked a young man that I met at a conference, 12 years old, a boy, and I asked him, well, do you know what plants grow from? And he said, yes, you water the plants, and then when you water the plants grow. And I said, but they don't grow from water. He said, yeah, that's what they grow from. They don't. They grow from the minerals that are in the water, and what plants do is they turn earth minerals, the mineral kingdom, they turn them into the plant kingdom. And if your body is lacking these essential trace minerals and essential minerals, you're not getting those minerals in your system. And it's very difficult to supplement these, because what a plant will do is that they will make selenium and copper and all of these essential minerals will make them bioavailable. Because you cannot go and eat rock directly, but the plants will transform the minerals into bioavailable minerals that our body needs to support itself. The nutrients, the plant nutrients, the phytonutrients. For example, if you have a wild blueberry that has to grow in the wild and really struggle for its subsistence, it doesn't get enough rain and it's got weeds growing around it, it has 100 times the phytonutrients of a domesticated blueberry grown in a monoculture in a blueberry patch, because it doesn't have to get strong. It gets watered, it gets fed, but it's lacking the essential nutrients that it gets from the soil. Today, the biggest danger that we have for vegetarians and carnivores is that our soils have been depleted. Essential nutrients have washed out to the sea, and you have the chemicals that are pushing for accelerated growth of plants that are devoid of nutritional value. And this is creating truly a health crisis in the planet. Shamans are masters at working with the invisible world. And in the West, we're masters at working with the visible world. I remember being in the Amazon one time, and I had cut myself, and I was getting a little bit infected. And I said to one of the Amazonian people, I said, these are basically the microbes, the bacteria that are feeding on my blood and creating the localized infection. And they said, what are bacteria? I said, well, they're these microscopic, invisible microorganisms. And the man said to me, oh, you mean like spirits? I said, no, these are like animals, but really, really tiny ones. And he says, nah, there are no really tiny animals. The next time I went to the Amazon, I took a little microscope with me, and I put a drop of water under the microscope, and I showed it to that Amazonian man and to all the school children that came running to see the life inside a drop of water. Millions of bacteria, extraordinary. But they were masters of the invisible world, of that world that we cannot see through our microscopes or through our looking glasses or telescopes. Today, physicists know that 95% of the universe is made up of the invisible material that they call dark matter and dark energy. That we only live in the 4% universe that we can see and measure and quantify. But this invisible world that today physicists call the quantum field permeates the entire cosmos, and that we are part of. We have an energy field that surrounds the physical body, and this energy field is created basically by your own nervous system, but it's infused with your beingness, with the qualities that make you you, with your consciousness, that's interacting continually with the quantum field that we're living in. We're part of the quantum field of creation. We are one with all the universe. But we also have a personal consciousness and identity that informs who we are, our personality and how we think, and that allows us to experience the universe. So the shamans of old discovered that everything is really happening in the invisible world. And if you could fix things in the invisible world and the energy field, if you could clear the imprints for disease before it appeared in the body, then you would prevent illnesses. If you could clear the blueprint before it manifested in the body, you could live a long and healthy life. And that's what they focused on. We call it prevention, but it's really upgrading the quality of the human energy field of consciousness. Now, we think of consciousness very psychologically. We think about it as the ideas and the thoughts, the brain, the mind. Now, consciousness is an information field that organizes the physical body and organizes the experiences that you will have in the world, who you will meet, who you will fall in love with, who you will marry, who you will have trouble with. It organizes your world. And this is what the shamans mastered. They work at the level of the invisible world, so you don't have to fix it and change it at the level of an organ or a liver or a heart or or dementia that's caused by the field and catalyzed by your diet. So you got to change the diet, because this is how we create the body. We create the body by the foods we eat. And in fact, we grow a new body every 7 years. There's no one in the planet that's older than 7 years old. because your skin cells divide every 6 days. You have a whole new skin every 6 days. The lining of your lungs every 3 days. Your bones every 7 years. Every molecule in your body changes every 7 years. So the shamans discovered how we could clear the information field to truly grow a new body, not just to repair, which is what Western medicine does. It's focused on repairing. But how do you regenerate? How do you grow a new body, regenerate the body? And if your diet is clean enough, and if your field is clear enough, you can go beyond regeneration into rejuvenation. And this is at the core of shamanic energy medicine. This is what I do today. And we train our students to become practitioners of this ancient medicine that doesn't rely on treating disease, but on creating health, on creating extraordinary health, on tapping into these password-protected regions of our DNA that will allow you to grow a new body, and that do grow a new body for you every 7 years. And we know that these codes are in our DNA. We know they're there because you grew a body a long time ago or a short while ago. You grew a body. And the trick is, how do we break into these regions in the DNA code that are password protected? Because you don't need any new fingers or toes or arms, but you need to tap into regeneration. And this is where modern science is leading us as well, to what the shamans have known for millennia, that we have the ability to grow a new body, which is the title of my last book, most recent book, and to really get our health span to equal our lifespan. What happened to me as an anthropologist, I went to wild parts of the planet, to the Amazons and the jungles, to the rainforest in Indonesia, to Africa, to the savannas. And along the way, I picked up parasites and viruses that were really not very good for you. And my body at one point broke down. And I went for a medical checkup, and they said to me, Alberto, you better get in line for a liver transplant because your liver is dead. You have heart problems. You have holes in your heart. You have parasites that have moved into your blood supply, to your portal vein in your liver. Your brain is full of parasites. And I said, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because I knew I could maybe get a new liver and maybe a new heart. But it's hard to find a good brain today, and it'd be much harder to get one. So what I did was to go to the best doctors to kill the parasites. And Western medicine is very good at killing things. But then I had to grow a new liver. I had to grow a new heart to repair my heart that was full of holes. And I had to repair my brain that now was full of dead parasites. I had to grow a new body. And I grew a new body not in 7 years, but in 7 months, utilizing the strategies of the first neuroscientists, which were the medicine men and women of the wild places of the world. They still knew how to trigger and activate and hack basically your genetics to trigger the process of growing a new body in a very short period of time. And today I have a perfectly good brain that I'm enjoying, at least, and my heart is functioning beautifully, and I've got a new liver. Amazing thing is that we are programmed for regeneration, and our diet shuts down these programs, beginning with sugar or anything that turns into sugar, bread, pasta. It will shut down the detoxification and the regeneration programs in the body. The heavy metal exposure that we have keep us living in brain fog. Our brains have been damaged. We have damaged brains, and we don't know about it because we have been so caught in the brain fog, and that we think that our lives are about things that have very little to do with an authentic, true life. So it's hard to come back from that disease that gets you so self-absorbed by your ego and by who you are, which is actually a sign of your brain fog, of your brain being contaminated by heavy metals. It's this amazing self-absorption and narcissism in the West. I'll give you a test. If you want to know if your brain is damaged or not, go out for a drive in the Autobahn in Europe particularly, or in America in the highways. And if you think that anyone who's driving faster than you are is a crazy lunatic, and anyone who's driving slower than you are is a grandmother that shouldn't even be allowed on the road, you know you have a problem with stress, with a stressed and damaged brain that needs to be detoxified, that needs to be upgraded, so that you can stop producing the molecules that create psychosomatic disease and begin to produce the brain molecules that create bliss and create joy, that you can step into that higher brain that can create psychosomatic health. We know how to do that today. We have the science and we have the ancient wisdom of the shamans of old. We know how to grow a new body that can live a very, very long and healthy life. But it's up to each one of us to do what I call the experiment of n is equal to 1. Because in science, you want to have n, the number of people in your experiment, be really big so you can come to legitimate conclusions. But today we cannot wait for the science. We have to do our own experiment of n is equal to 1. My experiment is called Alberto, and I want to begin to implement the strategies that will prevent the dementias, that will prevent the cancers that we're all scripted for, because the bell curve, that big fat bell curve, says that 98% of us are going to die from disease, not from old age, from cancer, from dementia, from Alzheimer's, heart disease. We're programmed for it by our lifestyle and our society. We want to be an outlier. We want to be one of the outliers in the bell curve that has a long and healthy life, that lives long and dies quickly. That's the formula. Today we're faced with a biological crisis. Today we have depleted, exhausted immune systems that are making us vulnerable to viruses and parasites. And the storm that we're going through right now with this viral episode the planet is in the middle of is just the beginning. And it's so intense because of how sick people are. So this is a time to revision your health, revision your life. And for the shamans, every crisis that we have, every health crisis, is an opportunity for evolving, for evolution. And we can take this challenge today as an opportunity to become that new human that all of the indigenous prophecies speak about, that we are becoming today. If we're anxious today, it's because we're facing a crisis. And it's not a crisis of a virus. That's not the problem. It's how resilient your system is. How resilient, how quickly can you recover health when you get sick from anything? One of the ways that you can do that is by coming into a state of deep relaxation. And you can do that through the breath, through your breathing practice. And I want to share a breathing practice with you. We normally breathe between 12 and 15 times a minute. But to come into a deeply relaxed state, and what I call normal is basically the way that you live when you're stressed out, that you breathe 12 to 15 times a minute. To come into that deep healing place where the body's natural healing systems can be activated, you need to regulate your breathing, because the breath is an autonomic function that we can use to dialogue and reset our nervous system. So instead of breathing 12 times a minute, I'm going to invite you to breathe 2 times a minute, or maybe 3. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So join me. Get my drum to help me out. I'm going to ask you to inhale to a count of 4. Hold the breath full for a count of 4. Exhale to a count of 4. And hold the breath empty for 4. So inhaling to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Empty to 4. 2, 3, 4. Inhaling to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 4. 2, 3, 4. Exhale to 4. 2, 3, 4. Hold empty for 4. 2, 3, 4. Inhale to 4. 2, 3, 4. Hold full. 3, 4. Exhale to 4. 2, 3, 4. Empty to 4. Inhale to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold to 4. Exhale to 4. 2, 3, 4. Empty to 4. Inhale to 4. And exhale, regular breaths. Here you were taking 2 to 3 breaths per minute. And you had plenty there. If you can slow your breath down, you can slow your life down. You can break out of the paralysis that our nervous system is in and trigger tremendous healing and great states of health.